Hello, and welcome to Evolution, the podcast, where we're deep diving into the future of Salesforce and technology. I'm your host, Chad Lieberman, the founder of Future, and each episode, we're going to be exploring the cutting-edge developments that are reshaping the technology landscape today, helping you evolve your skills and business for the future. Whether you're a Salesforce professional, a technology enthusiast, or simply just curious about where the digital world's heading, you're in the right place. We'll be bringing you exclusive interviews from industry leaders, deep dives into emerging trends, and practical insights you can apply into your own technology journey. Let's not just prepare for the future, let's create it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Evolution, the podcast. I'm Chad Lieberman, the CEO and founder of Future, and I'm here with Michael Joo today, who has 13 years of Salesforce delivery experience, and we're here to talk all things digital transformation, and particularly why digital transformations fail so often. Michael, so good to have you. Thank you for coming on. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me, Chad. I've had a bit of an interesting journey from customer side into agency world into now running a startup. You know, I started my career as a developer, a Microsoft developer, and, you know, I got landed, Salesforce on my lap, and, I was asked to implement it. I fell in love with it and I never looked back, and, I spent the next 13, 14 years deep into the product. So have the experience from early on from customer side all the way to, running a lot of projects as well.
I think it's funny to see, how people get into the Salesforce ecosystem, whether you're an admin at a company and it just falls in your lap, or someone who consciously changes technology. And it's really great to hear, about your journey and the different pathways you've taken, which is really exciting. And I think would be a good place to start is like, let's just talk about digital transformation. I think we hear that word all the time. It's, I don't know, it sounds like a buzzword. For those who don't know what transformation and digital transformation means, can you just tell me a bit about it?
Yeah, look, I think the first place that I see the confusion is with customers or anyone out there is the difference between digitization and digital transformation, right? Digitization, it's everywhere. It's, companies that, move from CRM, spreadsheets to CRMs as an example.
Yeah.
They think that's digital transformation when it's really not. It's not. It's less about those things we call digitization. Digital transformation is a change of people, change of ways of working for a company to transform with digital around them. And I think that's kind of what I've seen as when companies and people confuse themselves of like, hey, we've digitally transformed.
It's like one is just using the technology to update like one little thing, but this is also about how the company changes its entire ways of working, its business processes.
So it's less about digital, it's more about people.
Exactly. Right? I think that's often a lot of the times one of the most overlooked aspects when it comes to implementing the technology and changing it, to me is all about the people, right?
And I do think that's kind of like that key point, which we're going to get into is why do these projects fail, or why do companies feel like they're failing? And it actually, what we've seen, through the journey that I've been and speaking with lots of customers and being involved in lots of projects, it's companies starting with technology, a technology-led, decision, right? They,
look at the new shiny object.
And, these enterprise software companies, they do a very good job at selling.
They're great.
They're great at selling. They're a Salesforce, right? They're an engine. But, what we've seen is that we've got companies that go buy technology, spend a bunch of money, they go, oh, we got the technology now. Let's go hire a bunch of people and agencies to implement on the technology. So you spend more money. So you've got the tool, you've got the people, if you spent money, then you're like, let's go do some projects and let's build some more automation. So you spend more money. And somewhere along the lines, the CEO or the CFO is going to ask the question, what is the ROI on all of this?
Yeah.
And no one can typically answer that because there was no strategy underpinning every decision that was made. So I feel like there's a lot of companies that go down that path. And unfortunately, I don't blame anyone, right? Because they sometimes just don't know.
Yeah. Well, they think the technology is just going to solve their problem. Right. And it's just like, oh, I have this really immediate need right ahead of me. Like, I want to, send out automated customer journeys. But like, well, what is actually the point of that? Are you trying to generate new leads? Are you trying to increase conversion? What is the goals of what you are trying to achieve that's going to move the needle on your business? Right.
Absolutely. And you've seen it, I guess you've seen it from, being involved in a GSI side, with much larger companies. I've, focused more on small businesses, medium-sized businesses, but the problems are the same.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
They both have the same problem. No matter how much money you're spending or how little, they're all quite similar in nature.
So that's like, I mean, if we're talking about the reasons, one of the things we wanted to have this conversation was to actually understand why these things fail. I mean, I think the first point you're raising is that you get the technology first without the strategy. I mean, I think that's probably one of the number one, I'd say, biggest problem that I see of why these digital transformations fail. Would you agree that's probably the number one thing?
I do think so. And it's what I experienced firsthand. I was customer side, minding my own business, doing Microsoft things, and it landed on my, on my desk, and I had to figure it out, right? But, I think we were fortunate because we stopped. We stopped and we evaluated the situation, and then we started with the why. We asked, the marketing business, it's why do we need to do this? And what is the expected outcomes? Because then you can decide what is it that you need to build to achieve that as well. So,
tell me this, because I'm actually really curious about you being a customer. Like, how did this come about? How did it fall in your lap? And actually, you just brought up a point of like, you did take a stop and a pause to pivot. Like, what happened? Like how did you realize that?
I think at the start, so, I was in the IT team. IT and marketing were quite disconnected in some ways. And
is that always usually the case?
A lot of the case, right? Yeah. And, it happens so much more than you think that happens. We started by, marketing came to us that they've signed this new software. It's called Exact Target. It was just around the time of acquisition. They had great plans. They had a great view of how this was going to be used. But, we needed to then factor in because they were expecting IT to implement, IT to manage it. So we kind of needed to stop because we didn't even factor for any of that resourcing.
So they didn't really come to you to understand what capacity and skills they needed on the team to actually implement and run the technology.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
wow. Yeah.
And, unfortunately it was already signed. So we had to deal with it.
They didn't involve you as a key stakeholder. I mean, I think that's also just one of the challenges I've seen is the segregation at companies. A lot of times operating in silos. Almost every company I work with has either the sales, the service, the marketing team, the IT team, the leadership team just running in their own little pillars. And the biggest reason why things fall over is they don't talk to each other.
No.
I mean, that's crazy, right?
I see it all the time.
It's still, why do we organize company structures in such silos? I think half my job is trying to get people and stakeholders to align and talk to each other.
You know what? A great story. So I was tasked to facilitate a strategy workshop with a big pharmaceutical company. And I stepped into that room of 5 minutes just before it started, and I saw both sides of the table introducing themselves to each other. And I asked, how long have you two been in the company? 2 years, 3 years, sales, marketing. You've never met each other before?
Yeah.
That happens. It's so mind-blowing that
Mm.
companies, unfortunately, they have those excuses. Unfortunately, like, oh, we kind of work in different silos
Yeah.
and, different segments.
Yeah.
But really, if you're touching the customer experience, you're touching the customer experience. You need to get together and decide what that experience needs to be.
Well, great marketing drives sales.
Correct.
And great sales is also, and retention is also ties heavily into a great service and customer experience. And anytime I go into a client, it's about looking at the end-to-end customer journey, not by business function, but how putting, ourselves in their shoes of how this would work and the right experience. But then does the technology and how do we support that, facilitate that experience?
Correct. And with, back in, digital transformation, that term, that word, that program has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
And I think when we started, sales and marketing still, they weren't technical. Like sales, like marketing wasn't technical. IT wasn't to marketing. They didn't speak the same language. And you saw a lot of roles and departments come up called the digital team, CDOs, chief digital officers. And really, in my view, we created that ourselves as well as a customer, because we knew that we needed someone in the middle, right? That was translating marketing term to technical term, and then technical terms back to marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we formed internally a digital team, which, back in the days, like our CIO was all for that, right? Because they were struggling on both sides, like, and really understanding, the technical terms and the marketing terms. Why are we doing it? So we created that. And, I think now marketers are expected to be technical.
Yeah.
Technical people are expected to understand the marketing side as well, and how the business runs, which I think is great.
Yeah. I mean, I see it a lot where, it's not just about the silos at a company where sales, service, and marketing and IT aren't talking to each other, but it's also just this like lack of awareness from I'm a business and I'm an IT, and like almost every project, the business needs to understand, well, what data exists, what source data, what systems do we have available to maybe drive segmentation and understand more about our customer. The business needs to understand the technical stuff. They need to be able to work with the data. We're in such a data-driven world, but also IT, often I always hear them make excuses. Oh, we need to be told what the business wants, right? And the IT team is saying, like, just tell us what needs to be done. And they're just stewards of the technology without actually understanding why the technology is driving the outcomes of the business.
Absolutely.
Like, is that something you see as well? Like,
and you've probably seen it so many times in your career as well, speaking to lots of companies and stakeholders. A lot of when, we've been on the consulting side, and the first question we typically ask is like, what do you want to achieve? What are your objectives?
Yeah.
Many times you can't get an answer straight away. Oh, I have to come back to you. Oh, let me, I have to look at like when you're talking to, I guess, key stakeholders or project sponsors, and they don't really understand that number or those objectives. It's a bit scary. Yeah. Right. And these are big companies.
You have to start with the value tree. Like it kind of comes down to that. What are your
and the leader at the top needs to set that up, right? At the top and trickle it down.
It's for sure cultural. I think the projects that I've seen successful have been the leaders understanding, hey, we are going through this project. This is the vision we have for it. This is what we're going to achieve. This is our plan to do it. Like, let's make everything about this to make it successful. And people understand why. Why down to the individual requirement level.
Correct.
The capability. Is this the right capability my users need? Is this the right user story?
Yeah.
That is actually going to make a difference into the metrics we're trying to achieve with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's like starting at the top, right?
Yeah, because you can as CEO, once they set the vision and so forth, they should be able to ask anyone in that business, even to the intern that has just joined, what are you working on? and the intern should be able to clearly articulate,
Yeah.
this is the project I'm working on. This is what the objectives that we're trying to meet.
Yeah.
This is why we need to do it, and this is what the expected outcome. Anyone should be able to explain why are they doing certain things, and I can put money on this, that we can go speak to any company out there and sit down with someone and ask them the question. They really don't understand how it ties back to the business metrics.
Yeah.
Not many of them will know that.
Oh, just to take a quick pause. I mean, I think we've already kind of uncovered quite a few big reasons why. I mean, the first thing, was that it's a technology-led transformation where they just procure the technology to solve a problem without actually understanding what metrics they're trying to achieve. I think one other thing we talked about is like, do you have the right skills and capacity and resourcing needs to manage the technology? I know many times probably you've seen where we buy it and then they're like, well, we don't know who's going to implement it or even run it once it is implemented. We've also talked about the lack of focus on the metrics, right? The actual business metrics that you're trying to achieve, setting the vision. I mean, those are probably three of the biggest ones. Is there any other ones that you have?
I think the people side is big, right? The people side, it always gets missed. It always gets underestimated as well. And a lot of companies who have already embarked on the technology-led strategy, unfortunately, if they had really good people internally, they would solve that problem themselves, right? But it's very tough to find good people these days. Like, I think
and people, when you're saying people, you're talking about the skills needed to implement and manage the technology.
Correct. Yeah, it's one of those parts. And digital transformation or any project needs capability and capacity. People that understand and has the skills and then the capacity to do the amount of work. People have 40 hours in a week. There's so much that you can do. So if you're asking the business to do 100 different things in a year, and they have only 3 people on the team, it's impossible. So they need to, if you start with strategy, how many people you actually need.
I think, one of the problems as a consultant when we're brought in, we're like, okay, like how much time is this going to take out of my schedule? Because oftentimes the business, the technology stakeholders have other priorities that they need to do. They're not full-time dedicated to the project. And so, hey, we actually, as a consultant need at least, let's say 10 hours a week to be in workshops, to gather the requirements and do a lot of the work. But if you're not actually investing your time and have the capacity to support this, things are going to fall over. We're not going to meet the needs of the business if this is a side project for you.
Exactly.
How do you think that customers who are implementing technology can think about how to manage and prioritize that? Do they need to be going all in? How do they balance that time and capacity?
It's a good question because a lot of the key stakeholders that want to do these programs typically need to build a business case. It needs to be raised in the business, put it into the financial forecasting. There's a lot of work behind the scenes. But typically for that approval to happen, the need, the why, the justification needs to be very clear. And without a strategy, it's very hard to justify why do you need $1 million in the next year for this, right? If you don't have the answers for that, you're never going to get the money internally to do any of that program. So if you start with the strategy, you clearly define the corporate and marketing objectives that you want to hit, clearly articulate the projects and the initiatives that can help us get there. You've prioritized them in a way that you have the highest, returning on investment initiatives first. Show that you've had some understanding of where you want to get to with
you got to prove
programs.
Value early, right? Yeah.
And then articulate here is who we need, skills wise, capacity wise. And clearly articulate how many people we need, or is there other agencies or partners that we can bring on to deliver this,
to augment your
and then
capacity
the
and
last
skills.
bit is the technology. Like, these are the technologies that we have now. with the technologies we have now, we can only get to this level. But if we want to go further than that, here are the technologies that can help enable us to do that. So I think that's one of the things that we've seen.
What would you say has changed when we talk about digital transformation and project delivery? I mean, you and I have probably been around the game probably a similar amount of time over the last, 13 years. What do you think, from when we probably started in our career, and how do you think digital transformations changed from then to now?
Lots have changed.
Is this a loaded question?
Yeah, it is. Lots have changed. Technology is advancing
Rapidly.
so quickly. Companies, it's hard to keep up. And decide which way you want to go. And
there's so many new capabilities. Correct. I mean, when we started on Salesforce, it was like CRM, like sales and service, and on Classic. And you didn't really need, there wasn't industry clouds. There wasn't AI data cloud. All these skills you need now to be a well-rounded professional.
Yeah, exactly. I think the big change is like, the technology is advancing much quicker than the capability and capacity that's getting built. If you look at any of the, industries like Salesforce or like, Microsoft or the Oracles of the world, like the technology is advancing quickly, but we still hear, a lack of resources out there, or it's hard to find good people. There's not enough good people out there. It's too expensive to hire. Like we still hear a lot of that. And I don't blame anyone, because it's just that the technology is moving so quickly, and the capability and capacity that's getting built out in the market is just it's not keeping up. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
So we actually need more organizations out there and individuals focused on really helping build the ecosystem out, because the digital world, it's advancing too quickly.
Yeah. And I think, when I started, and maybe it was because I've been in, the large, global system integrators doing big, large scale transformations. It used to be like these big programs, and there's still probably some of those out there right now, but I think things are becoming way more iterative and agile, as they should, like, starting small with 12-week, 8 to 12-week proof of concepts versus a 14-month thing. Because like you said, technology changes so fast. Companies need to be able to adapt to new capabilities and new requirements. But also sometimes I felt like that's led to these hybrid agile waterfall methodologies and so much focus on agile processes that you actually forget about just actually doing the work and building. Where I've seen so many companies just focused on like just doing the right methodology and spending, months writing requirements and process flows. Like we used to do big process re-engineering,
So you're saying that a lot of like that, what we used to hear from the big system integrators, those 12, 18 months strategy, driven projects, they don't exist anymore?
I think there's far and few between. I mean, I think there's definitely still some, but I don't think there's many big programs out there of work like that. A few, but I think they're very focused more on this agile, iterative delivery. And I think one of the things I've seen as a part of that is, like a lot of focus. The downside of the iterative part is things kind of are a little bit more messy. They don't know the exact scope of what they want to deliver. They're very focused on the process and methodology without really getting things done and implemented. But
so maybe like, with, final takeaways then, like in your view, like what are some things that customers can do, if they are embarking on like a new transformation strategy, or they're already in the middle of it, like
I mean, some of my probably couple takeaways are, one, it's always at the first, it's about setting the North Star vision, right? And have everyone be aligned to that. Like, it's like, this is what we want to achieve, and this is who we want to be as a company. We want to be able to service our customers across multiple channels. We want to provide a seamless experience. These are the metrics we're trying to hit. And this is the type of experience of what we want our customers to feel about us, and have that vision, like you said, be trickled down and also enabled by the people who are using the technology. So it's one, I think, listening to the users and their pain points, and understand like how this technology is going to help them and what you want out of these tools, right? The first thing. I think the second takeaway for me is about the people. Like you said, it's about making sure they understand how the technology is going to make an impact for them. But it's also about good enablement. Change and training is oftentimes the most overlooked part of digital transformation. We could build the best CRM solution, but if a user just doesn't understand how this is going to impact their job and how it's going to make their lives easier, they're not going to use it, right? I mean, that's really one of the most important parts of our job, is, like you said at the beginning, is getting back to the people, right?
That's absolutely right.
I mean, what would you say? I know we talked a lot about, some of those failures, but what are some of the key takeaways that we could do to avoid that and make these projects successful?
We touched on why they fail. They buy technology, they build the operations, they do projects, and there's no strategy, right? Yeah. I think we do it the opposite way, right? You start with strategy, you decide, I guess the key objectives, the key metrics that you need to hit as a business, the customer experience you want to deliver as a company. Then you decide on the projects and initiatives that are going to help deliver on that strategy. Once you have that decided and prioritize, you now know the amount of work that needs to happen within that next year. Then you decide, who do you need? What are the capability and the capacity we need to deliver that? And then only then is that you look at your current technology stack and go, okay, can we actually achieve what can we achieve with the technology that we have currently? And what is it that we're missing? In order to achieve that strategy. Then you have a very clear way to justify why are you there? What are you working on? And how do we get to that end goal? I think if people use that framework and stop, because anyone that's in the middle of digital transformation, they're feeling like they're potentially failing or failed. I think they just need to stop. Because everyone out there is probably feeling the same. But what we found that does work is that you just stop, you rally everyone together, especially the leader of the business, and get everyone on the same page. I think that's what customers can do.
Very well said. I mean, those are all really great points. I think, like you said, it's flipping the script. It's starting with the strategy. I think one more thing to add is and to your last point, it's just about it being able to adapt. Like, I think people listening to this, I don't want them to feel hard on themselves if they're going through a project that's just not going well. Like, almost every project is really hard. We're in a very difficult business where things are so technical, they're complex, they're multifaceted with many teams, many stakeholders. Like, have some grace for yourself, but also realize that you can pivot, you can adapt. And I think the things that make some of the projects I've been on successful is the ability to just understand how to get through those issues together as a team.
Correct.
Right. Correct. And being able to say, oh, there will 100% be issues on every software delivery project I've ever been on. Right. But it's about the culture and how you move through those as a team. How do you adapt to make sure you're actually getting the results?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Adapt, be okay with it. And continue to learn. And upskill yourself. Because things are changing quickly, and there's going to be others that come up to your level very quickly. I think there's some good points.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today. This was such a great conversation. I know it's so timely and relevant for a lot of people out there. So appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, Chad.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Till next time. Thanks for listening to this episode. Let's not just prepare for the future, let's create it. Leaving a review helps others find the podcast. And if you want more information or want to get in touch, visit futurefuture.io and follow us at Evolution the Podcast.